life isn't what you think it is. It turns out that you are maximally happy when you're working on a hard project. It doesn't make sense when you first see it, but there's a TED Talk from a guy named Makai Csikszentmihalyi. He's Hungarian, and his name has almost no vowels in it. It's because, several hundred years ago, the Italians stole all the verbs, or all the vowels. Anyway, he did his research on happiness, and he found out that people were maximally happy when they were struggling at just the right level to solve problems. And all of a sudden the light went off in my brain, and I said, holy cow, that's what we've been doing with video games. That's why we level up. That's why we keep going, because we want you to be struggling with difficult tasks, just difficult enough that you can do it. And that's the ultimate happiness. And that's how we, in the video game business, we addict you. We've got that hook firmly planted in the left-hand side of your cheek. And it turns out to be a great business. Now, let's assume that we can take that knowledge and apply it to our life. And there we come to entrepreneurship. Because one of the things about entrepreneurship, other than getting a job, is entrepreneurship is totally self-paced. And if you're trying to be successful, you are right up against the edge of the problems all the time. I mean, when I started Atari, I had no factory, I had no money. It was just one of these things. But the only thing we had is we had a product that people wanted. And so how do you do it? Well, it turns out I started Atari with $250. It's all the money I had. And I didn't get venture capital until we were at 40 million in sales. Now I can say, well, how do you do that? Well, I figured out a tricky solution. You bought the parts that you didn't have to pay for 60 days. You'd quickly turn it into a product. You'd sell it for cash. And you had 60 days before you had to pay. The company operated in positive cash flow. So as long as we were going, we got more and more cash, and you can use that extra cash to buy chairs and tables and machines, and you could pay people, which was a good thing. People are better when they're paid. Anyway, what we did is we really pushed on it hard. And I look back and I said, boy, this is really hard. But it was the happiest times of my life. And when I sold it for 28 million, that was also a happy time, because then all of a sudden you can buy a big house, a nice car, and all that good stuff. But more than that, I think it would have been a great experience if I hadn't made a dime. If I just made a wage, just figured it out. And so, right now, you guys are in probably the most uncertain times in the world. Because within 5 years, there will be you'll basically be faced with an unemployment of one sector of about 18 million jobs here in the United States because of the self-driving car. All the cars will be self-driving within 10 years. You're going to start to see it next year and the year after that. And the reason for it is that a car is a better driver right now than you are, like by a lot. Did you know that self-driving cars are more important than world peace? You say, world peace, we really want world peace. Well, it turns out that more people are killed in automobile accidents than are killed in wars on both sides. So which do you want? You're going to save the most lives. you get a self-driving car. But self-driving car, what if you're an insurance adjuster? All the insurance companies, 90% of what they're doing is fender benders, little things, it's not big stuff. So insurance adjusters go away. Of course, taxi drivers go away. Truck drivers go away. Auto body repair goes away. And you say, oh, that's horrible, we gotta slow that down. Actually not. Because what happens is that you get, each time you have these upheavals, the world gets better and better. I don't know if you've heard about a guy named Ned Ludd. Ned Ludd, turn of the century, at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. He was a weaver, and he got fired because his factory was automated with the steam-powered loom. He got pissed off and went in that night and broke up the loom with pickaxes. During the next 20 years, the Luddite movement required more soldiers to stop it than was put against Napoleon. The forces against technology has been since talked about as Luddism. And you guys are going to be right in the middle of the next wave of Luddism as people reject robotized factories, self-driving cars. But the question for you is going to be, what am I going to do for a living? What is going to make me a part of society? What's going to make me have enough money to live in a nice house and get a wife and a house and a kid and a dog and a boat? Is that the American dream? I don't know.
Yeah.
I want a boat.
A boat's cool. And self-driving boat? No. But I think that if you learn entrepreneurship, it's probably the most ecumenical degree you can get, because no matter what happens, entrepreneurship is about matching an idea with the future. And the future's always going to be there, and your ideas are always going to be there. And so what you need to do is be able to put those together. Now, I talk about any idiot that's had a shower has had a good idea, right? Okay. The trick is, what do you do when you get out of the shower? That's the important part. Because anybody, have you ever heard something, oh, that guy stole my idea? No, he didn't. You were too lazy to get off your butt and do something about it, and that person did. Ideas are shit. Execution is everything. And what you need to do is learn how to be a doer, not a thinker, not a dreamer. Execute and step forward and do it. Also, right-size your ideas. Trying to figure out if you have an idea for a new kind of an airplane, you really probably are not going to be able to get it into production. But if you have the idea for a widget, we're starting an entrepreneurial school in downtown Las Vegas, and we're going to be teaching a lot of that stuff. But the main thing I want you guys to think about is when you say to somebody, will you give me a job? You are the supplicant, and the job is the control. They're the king. Would you please give me a job? I will humble myself in front of you and do whatever you say. But if you're an entrepreneur, you say, I am strong, I am capable, I'm going to solve a problem in the world, And the only people that are allowed to say no to me are my customers. And if they say no to me often enough, I'll go out of business, as I should. But if they say yes, then I've got a business that can go as far as I want, as I can manage it to go. And don't get frozen with your idea. Understand the process. Because the idea, if you think that the only idea that you had is that important, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. For example, you're going to want to get a patent, right? Got an idea, let's get a patent, and then nobody will steal my idea. Let me tell you how the world really works. You get an idea, you get a patent. A patent is like a great big gun. You can aim it at Apple, and you can aim it at Google, and you can aim it at all kinds of people. The problem is, the last patent suits that Google and Apple got involved in cost about $200 million to pursue in legal fees. So if I'm Google, and I'm looking at you, and you've got this patent, and you're aiming it at him, he says, ain't loaded. You don't have $200 million to fight me. Now, that's not to say, in today's world, they've changed the patent laws last year. And it's very easy. You don't have to do nearly as much research. It's first to file as opposed to first to use. And as long as you fill out the paperwork yourself and spend not a penny, try to get a patent. It's okay. It's just part of the due diligence. But don't think that it's going to protect you, because it won't. You will know when patents are valuable, when you can get an attorney today to do it on a contingent fee. Personal injury, almost any of these other things. You can get an attorney that will say, okay, I'll represent you for nothing, and you just pay me a third of what I recover for you. That happens all the time, not in patent law. That should tell you something. They've already figured that out, of what that is. So, I guess what I'm trying to do is say, you guys are going to have one heck of a ride. It's going to be great. The tools today are so good, whether it be 3D printing or whether it be Unity. You guys ever tried to program a game in Unity? Okay, Unity is a programming language that literally, if you're as smart as a piece of gum on the underside of the table, you can learn Unity and have an app in the App Store in 3 weeks. Why haven't you? No. I think that there's a lot of things that you guys are going to be able to do. You are so young and so dumb, but you'll never be this dumb again. You'll be smarter and better and more capable. And I've got 8 kids, and saying to an 18-year-old, you're young and dumb, that really make them unhappy. But when my kids were 13, 14, I'd say, kids, I'm going to get really stupid in the next few years, but don't worry about it. I'll get smart again when you're about 21. They said, what do you mean you're going to get stupid? I said, trust me, you'll figure it out. And of course it does. Adults are all a little bit stupid when you're a teenager. Have you guys got any questions? How many of you have been to a Chuck E. Cheese? Everyone? Did you have fun?
Yeah, best pizza around.
Huh?
Best pizza around.
Usually I don't hear that. They say, oh boy, the pizza really sucks.
Are you kidding me? The pizza's so good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, when I was, I sold it, almost 20 years ago. I guarantee you, when I was running it, pizza was crappy. Yeah,
Why'd you name it Chuck E. Cheese?
pardon?
Why'd you name it Chuck E. Cheese?
You didn't use
Oh, dude. Should I tell them the whole
Yeah.
story? Okay. The project name was Coyote Pizza. Now, Coyote Pizza, I thought that was kind of cool. I thought it was Wile E. Coyote kind of thing. And the largest pizza parlor in the area was one that was called Pizza and Pipes, and it had a large Wurlitzer organ, and I thought, okay, I want some kind of entertainment, but I want it to be run by a computer. Anyway, I was confident. I started Chuck E. Cheese inside Atari, and I thought that the interesting part about it was I knew we could make it mechanical and move and all that stuff, but we had no sculptures to make things that looked like a rat. So I was at a trade show, amusement park trade show, and I bought a costume that was a walk-around that was a coyote. I bought it, had it shipped to Atari, gave it to the engineers, said, make this thing talk. A couple of weeks later, I said, hey, how's the coyote coming? He says, we don't have a coyote. I said, what? He said, no, it's a rat. I bought a rat costume. He says, you can tell it's got a big pink tail. And I said, oh, well, that's a problem. So I thought, okay, it's no big deal. I'll just change the name. So it's Rick Rat's Pizza. Went into marketing and they said, you cannot name a restaurant chain after a rat. I mean, rats in a restaurant, that means you get a D on the health rating, and you just can't do that. And I said, well, okay, Disney has Mickey Mouse, who's a mouse. And they said, mice are kind of little and innocent, and but rats are nasty and crafty. And so I said, can it be a rat that will de-emphasize the ratness? They said, yeah, I guess we can do that. And so I says, okay, you name it, but it has to be a happy name. And so my head of marketing at the time came back, all smiles. And I said, okay, what's the name? They said, Chuck E. Cheese. It's a three-smile name. Okay, good. And that's how it got named. So, maybe what you should know is there are so many left turns and right turns and crazy turns that happen. Did you know Steve Jobs worked for me? I was the only guy that ever gave him a job other than Apple. And Steve Jobs was a fruitologist, fruitarian, and he thought that as long as he just ate fruit, that he didn't stink. He was wrong. He stank a lot, and so so I had to put him on the night shift. And he was so passionate though, and a really hard worker. And he had a friend, Steve Wozniak, who was one of these savants. Now, Wozniak was maybe the shyest person I knew. All the time that he worked with us, I never saw his eyes. He always looked at his feet. How do you know when a geek is an extrovert? He looks at your shoes instead of his. Anyway, that was Wozniak, but they did the breakout for me. Brick Breaker, whatever they call it now. But it was really a good game, and it was actually the game that launched the video game business in Japan. Pong didn't, because unlike America, Japanese kids don't invite their friends over to their house. It just doesn't happen. And so, since Pong was a two-player game, it wasn't successful in Japan. But Breakout, single player, right in there. Anyway, any other questions?
You have questions for us?
What's the information on the school thing?
It's called Snap Institute. Just go into snapinstitute.com. And we're going to have a 4-week program and some 12-week programs. And you say, why am I starting? I live in Los Angeles. And you say, why am I doing it in Las Vegas? And my belief structure is that you guys probably are clueless about business and industry in general. Las Vegas has trade shows every week in a huge variety. And so a significant part of our curriculum is going to be deep diving into an industry, probably 2 industries a week, in which you attend the trade show, you see what they're doing, and you come back and you discuss what's going on in that industry. And I actually think there's going to be some funny things happening. There's, in the early days of venture shipping, one of the things that made England such a huge powerhouse, did I set off the fire alarm? No. Such a huge, it's because they had these ships coming out, and they not only brought back different goods, but they brought back different ideas. I think that you guys going to several trade shows, a couple of trade shows a week for a period of time, you're going to see some standards of practice in this industry that hasn't been applied to this industry yet. And there might be $100 million business based on that difference that you saw first. And so you don't, a lot of you are not going to have a clue about what your business or what your idea is going to be. But I think that through that immersion into industries, plural, I think you're going to have a really good chance at it. Also, we're going to teach you a little bit about how to start your own business. Like, there's some tremendous businesses now that are really easy. I mean, how many of you here can write a short story? Have you put them on Google, have you put them on Kindle Singles yet? Why not? Okay. Kindle Singles will let you publish free. Just, have your friends edit it, and that. You want it to be about 10,000 words. Good short story. Pop it out there. There are kids right now that put up one short story every month that are making $500,000 a year right now. At 15. Makes you feel like a slacker, doesn't it? Who knows who PewDiePie is? He made $20 million last year. Trash talking video games. Now come on. Makes you feel like a slacker, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so you don't copy, but figure out little wedges. PewDiePie can make 20 doing what he does. Is there an angle with which you could put in YouTube videos? Because you'd be happy just to make a couple $100,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
I get it. So you don't have to be PewDiePie to be pretty happy with your life. How many of you marketed a product on eBay? Made any money at it?
I made a couple $100 off of old toys I remember playing with.
Well, why aren't you going to all your neighbors and say, let me clear out your garage and I'll market your stuff on eBay and I get half?
I've been currently doing that.
Successfully?
Successfully, yes.
Deal. See? Nice little stuff. And I think that that the Snap Institute is my entrepreneurial thing. Snap Institute will be my 28th company. They're sold, and see, I have actual 5-year ADD. I think it's really fun to start a company. about 5 years in, I get so bored. Because, you know, they get working too well. And when they're working too well, I feel like somebody else needs to do it instead of me. And so I started all these companies. And I can honestly say that some of them were really bad ideas. And even with them being a bad idea, I've only had 7 bona fide failures. I classify a failure as selling them for less money than I put in them. You know, but and I closed a few down just because they were worthless. But life has been good. I have 8 kids. My youngest son, we just got back from a trade show in Dubai. He's 22 years old. He started his company the day he graduated from high school. I shouldn't say that. He never graduated from high school. He basically wanted me to let him stop and start his business when he was 16. He says, I'm not learning anything here. He was a typical arrogant Bushnell. I teach my children arrogance right away. But anyway, and his business is building large-scale video games. He was a crack programmer at 14. My older boys were also, you know, into technology and knowing how. But he was actually at a meetup. Fathers really shouldn't brag about their kids in front of the kids when I'm going to. But he was at a meetup when he was 17. And in Los Angeles, they have meetups of people who show their code and talk about it. I mean, what a geek fest that's like. Look at my code here. Oh, isn't it wonderful? Give me an applause. Anyway, and he was doing that, and a guy came up after and he says, I'd love to hire you. He says, we can give you a 6-figure income to start and a signing bonus. And Wyatt said, well, you know, I'd love to, but I'm 16. So he was offered $100,000 plus from Google based on his code. I'm proud of that. You know, and my oldest son has a thing called the 2-bit circus, which is also in the technology field. All my kids are entrepreneurial, and they all have their own business, and I'm sure that they're going to do so well that they're going to be able to keep me in Sunny Acres with a Mai Tai. You know, that'll work. So, give it hell. If you haven't made $1 million or committed or filed for bankruptcy 3 times, by the time you're 30, you're not really trying. You got that?
I like that.
We're really wonderful to live here in America, because believe it or not, a failure isn't a big black mark on your forehead. Oh, there are several good Silicon Valley venture capital firms that will not fund you unless you've had a failure. It's a learning experience. It's not the case in Europe. If you have one failure, man, you're toast. And you know, we have a lot of screwy things, but here in Nevada actually should be a hotbed of innovation. Tax structure's right, cost of living's right. You know, it probably costs a third to start a company in Las Vegas of what it costs in Silicon Valley right now. And I mean, can you imagine having to pay $3,000 a month for a 1-bedroom tiny apartment in San Francisco? That's ridiculous. You've got to earn a lot of money. A person who's making $50,000 in Nevada would have to be making over $100,000 in Silicon Valley to make parity. But there's one advantage there. You eat, sleep, and breathe technology. So maybe you don't want to do just a tech company. You guys know a lot about hospitality. It's in the pores, it's in the air. And what you want to do is be an expert in your own field. And you can learn so much about people having fun, people at leisure. Did you know that when a person goes on vacation, their IQ drops at least 20 points? So people having fun are stupid. And you can really figure out ways to separate them from their money. That's business. So, have a great life. Thank you for letting me ramble on.